Now that we've got a starting scene for our game, let's bookend it by having an ending scene as well. I'll create a new scene with a user interface node, and I'll call it Endgame, and then save this as endgame.tscene, and then add this scene as the final level in our list of levels in the game state script. So resources endgame.tscene. Now we probably don't want this final level to be completely blank, so let's add at least a label. And we'll have the label say thanks for playing, and let's make it a bit bigger by adding a label settings with a font size of, let's say, 50 for this one. Big thanks for playing message that we can center by changing the anchor preset to top center, and then just make it come down a little bit. Thanks for playing there in our game. Something that I might also add to my end game scene will be a final score. So I might just duplicate this label with Control D, rename it score label, and move it down a little bit more. And then this one is going to say, let's say final score. Make up a final score. We're going to set this in our script, so it doesn't matter too much what it says right now, but I will change the alignment from left to center, and that will center my final score label. And the other thing that I could add to this is a button to go back to my main menu. So I'll click Add, go to Button, and I'll call this something like Home Button. That will say Main Menu. Could be a little bit bigger. For this one I need to go to Theme Overrides and change the font size to 32 was working out well. There's my main menu button, and I think I'll anchor that one to the bottom center and then move it upwards a little bit. That's kind of my end game scene done, except for the code to change the final score number and make the button go back to the start. So let's add a script to our endgame node, call it endgame.gd, and I'll drag in a reference to the score label, which I can set as soon as this endgame scene loads in. So I'll write score label.text equals final score plus string gamestate.score. And that will grab whatever my score was most recently in the game state, and it will set that score label to have that game state score as its text. And then I'll click on the Home button, go to the Signals tab, double click on Pressed, and add a function for when I press on the Home button. That's just going to reload the very first level of the game, which I can do by writing gamestate.currentLevel and setting it manually back to 0, and then just doing gamestate.restart level, which will restart the current level, and it will think that the current level is level 0, our main menu. There are a couple of extra things I'm going to add into my ready function. Won't need the process function. The first one we've already added to the main menu scene, which is to hide the global canvas layer when the scene starts up, so we don't see our score and our health in the corner. And the other one is, because we've just been playing a game where our player has captured the mouse, is that I want to set input.mouse mode back to being input.mouse mode visible, so that if I've just been playing with a player character that captured my mouse, this will let me have the mouse back when I'm on this final level of the game. That's our in-game scene done. Now it's just a matter of trying it all out. I'll start a new game, go through level 1, make sure I get a score actually before I completely finish the game, and then this door should take me through to my end game scene with a final score of 4. Thanks for playing. I can click on this button to get back to the main menu, and then everything works out nicely. Continue, as it happens right now, will take me back to this final thanks for playing menu, because that's the last door that I went through. That's our end game scene working pretty nicely. But I think I'll give mine just a bit more character by adding a copy of my dancing mutant into it, which I can do by adding a sub-viewport container with a sub-viewport inside, and then going to a scene with my mutant and doing copy, paste into the sub-viewport, reset its transforms back to 0, and then give my sub-viewport a camera 3D that can see the mutant. Doesn't look too bad. A transparent background that I can tick there, and its own sun and its own environment, which it looks like I'll need to drag into the sub-viewport. And then I should be able to see this mutant in my 2D scene of my Endgame, which is looking pretty nice, but I'm just going to resize it a little bit by clicking on the sub-viewport. Change this to maybe 400 or so. And then center my dancing mutant by giving it an anchor preset of center. Maybe just drag this down a little bit. And there we have it. I've got a nice dancing mutant in my endgame scene, although it is covering the button a little bit right now because the sub-viewport container includes all this transparent space. So I'm going to grab the button and put it underneath the sub-viewport container in the tree. In fact, I'm going to drag the sub-viewport container up because that's the easier option. So long as my button is underneath that in the tree, that means it will be drawn on top, and I'll still be able to click it even though the sub-viewport container is a little bit bigger. So now we'll just play this endgame scene. In fact, I can get to it by clicking continue. And we've got thanks for playing, final score of 4, and a really cool dancing mutant to finish everything off. And the main menu button should still take me back to the start. That's it for this video. Except that I discovered during testing that if we click the new game button after we've gone the whole way through the game and then back to the main menu, we're not actually resetting your score to 0 and your health to 100. So we didn't need to do this before because score started at 0 and health started at 100 when you opened the main menu, but now that we're coming back to it for a second time, we just have to add into our main menu script that the game state score should always start at 0 when we click the new game button, and the game state health should always start at 100. So that little fix there just means we'll be able to play through the game a second time. Now that's this video done for real.